Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to another Tuesday evening right here at We the People. Um, as usual, we'll start off with my monologue. And as always stated, this is my opinion, not necessarily the opinion of others or those on the panel. But I do find it rather necessary. Looks like I'm having a little short difficulty here. There I go. Um, to start off the show with what I think is the appropriate theme. So, we're going to talk a little bit today about homelessness under siege, the experiment called 2025. As you know, our panel consists of some of or all of the following. Mr. Derek Gilliard, he's our author and political advocate out of Atlanta. Excuse me. Masada Shabazz, father and community activist from here in San Diego. LaSalle, who's our personality development counselor. He's here in San Diego. We have Mr. Anthony Scott, historian and educator from Minneapolis, and Demetrius, our statistician and policy analyst. He's from Chicago, but his heart is in Detroit. He's actually from Flint, and I'm not sure exactly how things are going to go down this week, especially considering what has happened with Detroit. I know I'm an avid Pittsburgh fan, and things have certainly seemed turned around for me. But anyway, let's stop pretending that this government shutdown is about, excuse me, is about budgets. It's about control. A slow motion strangling of the working poor, while architects of the Project 2025 sit back and call it discipline. I think I need a little drink here. Let me grab a little Sprite. They should be endorsing us for as much as I show this on the screen. But anyway, this game plan is simple. You choke the lifelines, label the victims lazy, then privatize the pain. Homelessness isn't a byproduct, it's proof of concept. Tonight, we'll be featuring a profile point, a polite point off the policy corpse, but gloves off, no varnish, no mercy. Segment 1, the blueprint of the blue-collar trap. I see LaSalle is down here, and I want to grab him up here in the conversation. Brother LaSalle, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right. Good to see you. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I got you trapped tonight. There's nobody but me and you. See, you can't.
Oh,
You can't. so, so, I'm going to have to make you talk about some things here tonight. And as I said, you're a personality development counselor. So I wanted to kind of talk about the personality of homelessness. And
Hmm.
I know that might be a different term than is being used by socialists or social workers or whatever. But when you start talking about homelessness, is there a distinct personality trait? Is there some type of slot that we can put these people into? Like, it seems like politicians and whatnot want to do. You either, as I mentioned in the monologue, you're either lazy or you're a drug addict, or you know. Uh, what as somebody that is a personality development person, how do you fit these personalities into uh, what into this particular classification, or is there a classification? Give us some kind of
All right,
scope in this.
definitely, definitely. So the answer is definitely no. They don't fit into a slot, as you're kind of alluding to, where unfortunately they fall into a stereotype a lot of times, right? Lazy, drug addicts. No, there is a wide array of personalities. Before I became homeless, I had this perception of individuals who were homeless as well, that you just kind of that I just kind of had. I just because I wasn't there. But my first day, first time in a homeless shelter, my eyes began to be open. I was there with my family first time, uh, pretty much about a decade ago, I think, and it was in Orange County, the Fullerton Armory, the military folks there, and we were staying in the shelter there, and I noticed security guards, mothers. I mean, yeah, you would see the typical trope or like what someone would term someone that is mentally ill, or seeming like they're coming off of drugs or something like that. But there was a diversity of people there, um, hardworking people, funny people, you know, uh, sweet people, smart people you can have a conversation with for hours. So many, and I started to kind of, how do I say, not fall in love with, but like I started to have a profound sense of respect for the population, seeing that these were folks who were trying their best. And now that I was forced to kind of see it, being in that situation, it was it was eye opening to see the extreme diversity of folks. So these are generally the one thing that you can definitely put over as like a main cause of homelessness that would seem like a blanket situation is that people who are homeless typically have lack of access to family resources. The family themselves has lack of access to resources. But the truth of the matter is, and I love the question, because the people actually knew that not just the diversity of folks who were on the streets, but the diversity of reasons for people becoming homeless, everyday people too, by the way, becoming homeless. Um, it would change the perception and the ignorance about supporting and the lack of support for people who are homeless, financially and psychologically. So yeah, way diverse than what the box that they're typically put in. Like they just need to work harder, programs, and government should not be involved with this. I actually heard somebody say that government should not be involved with uh, assisting people. It should be private and non-profit groups. It should not be a government thing, which I don't agree with.
Well, considering, and once again, this is my opinion, and you may agree or not or disagree. But considering the fact that it was the government that is responsible for at least, I would say, 35 to 50% of the homeless problem due to Reagan closing up mental facilities and making them, kind of non-existent. Uh, and a lot of these people were turned out in the streets. Their families, some of them, their families couldn't cope or were afraid to, bring them back into the fold. Some of them, even now, are on some sort of psychotropic drugs. And, I know a lot of guys, and I'm speaking personally because everybody knows my past. I know when you first come out of prison, there are some people that have to take psychotropic drugs uh, in order for them to maintain. And they cannot pay for these things on their own. So uh, that's why you see a lot of uh, people, and I'm kind of uh, talking about veterans because I'm more aligned with their problems than I am the everyday person. Uh, but you see these people that you know they are on their meds, but their meds make them feel a certain way, and they would rather not feel that way, or in some cases, like I said, maybe they cannot afford their drugs, or once they are off of them, then there are effects. But my point being is that the government caused part of this problem, and if we cannot turn to them, and you speak of private donations and whatnot. Now, I can understand that if we were getting money from one of these super PACs that was giving us $300 million or $400 million. But to be very like blunt about it, until you hear Santa Claus ringing that chime at Christmas time, or one of these guys is urinating, on in front of your house, people don't care about those people until they come across them. Then they become a problem. What's your thoughts on this? Am I
You know what?
reaching here or what?
No, that was a great point. It's not just that the role of government should be that it's false to say that the role of government should be almost hands off regarding social support, especially in the sense of in the sense for homelessness. But also, good point. It's a debt that they owe to fix the problem. Not too much unlike the pharmaceutical companies and the medical community that overprescribe opioids to people and unfortunately cause a lot of people to become addicted either by overprescribing or by prescribing them and then cutting them off of insurance, maybe for not being able to pay $1 on the payments or whatever would happen. But ultimately, this excessive, I think there had to been a law that was passed where doctors have to go through more checks in order to prescribe opiates. But it had, before that happened, it had already made its impact of tons of opioid addicted individuals that started their addiction from trying to self medicate after missing, having their medication from the doctor, which was, you know, and it wasn't even and that's one thing, but it's also the fact that it was not comprehensive as a plan to help people in those situations that have, we'll say, trauma, mental illness. Uh, Too often now we have the idea of medicating folks who have mental illness, psychiatric issues, psychological issues, and it kind of stops there, unfortunately. Um, and that also causes what we see. But no, good point. I always say that one of the major things for some of the most chronic cases of homelessness is individuals who should be in some type of psych ward, who should be receiving some type of mental assistance, if not substance abuse assistance. But especially, and so as a result, we're seeing psych wards in the middle of our streets, and people who are mentally ill who should not go through the indignity of that they're going through. It should be in private, and it should be through good care. Now, one of the excuses, of course, that was used for shutting down the psych wards was the bad quality of a lot of it, But of course, the baby was thrown out with the bathwater, you know. The answer, of course, is just like it is now, to reform and improve mental health care and hire better workers, hire and better reward workers. You see, so I agree that was the large cause, and they owe it to those individuals to make up for what happened. And just like how finally, for example, insurance, uh, folks, you have, I think Kaiser is one of them. They are assisting with housing for individuals who have mental illness, for example. Um, they're taking more of an active role. There's something called Cal AIM in California now that um, really assigns your case managers and such for people who go through things. So ultimately, if you can prove you have mental illness, and have some things going on, and you can get access to the right, I hate to say it this way, but it's true. You get access to the right person and the right situation. Uh, your mental illness will basically directly qualify you to assistance with housing. They need to expand that, obviously, and assist individuals who are homeless, period, as a health crisis, because it is, right? I mean, if you're out in the streets and, you're vulnerable, I mean, literally, there's multiple ways that it can be a health crisis, you being on the streets. And by the way, if you don't have it then, it will come later. So,
See, here's my kind of complaint with this. You know, until you see a person doing some type of abnormal behavior, then mental illness looks just like the rest of us. I mean, it's like, do I have to commit a violent crime to show you that I can be a criminal?
mm,
There are people that are depressed that hold it inside. There was a time when men weren't allowed to cry. You weren't allowed to feel pain as a man. These were things that were expected. You were expected to go through pain, the pain of life. These were your expectations. Maybe you are a young man that all of a sudden you find yourself with 3 or 4 children and no job.
mm,
These are mental crises. They might not last all of your life. They might only last 6 months. They might only last until you get the tools to get a job. But during that time, you are suffering. What do we do with those type of people? Some of those people were put out on the street due to they couldn't pay their rent.
Good
Some
point.
of those people now are living in their cars.
Yeah. And then it gets justified by saying that, hey, they should have been more responsible, or they're this or they're that. Um, yeah, and then you put a blanket statement over them uh, as almost like they're criminals,
Crazy,
like they're guilty,
crazy. Yeah,
like they're
yeah.
lazy, and I've perceived that, and I remember noticing, like, especially as a man, especially as a man, and I have to say, as a black man too, that it's easy to put on, seeing homeless black men and assuming that it's through laziness, that the person is homeless, and that justifies the lack of assistance, at least in theory, for people who haven't grown in their sense of virtues, or we'll just say right and wrong. It's enough that some of them would need to justify not giving back. There's no doubt a lot of these people were taxpayers, and I mean, but I like that. Great point. It's like that is like, yeah, if that man with those children in that situation, maybe he'll handle it okay in the beginning, but maybe, and I spoke about this before. There was a town hall that I spoke about this in one of the neighborhoods that um, in San Diego, where there was a debate about enforcement, uh, about homelessness, and hey, we don't want these people in our neighborhoods. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're pooping in the streets, they're doing this, and by taking it easy on them, we're making the problem worse. And having actually, and a lot of these times, these people, you can tell they're speaking from a distance, and not really actually knowing a lot of the individuals. But me having spoken to individuals, I would quickly tell a lot of them, like, you do know, and this is for NIMBY folks in particular, those not in my backyard folks. I would tell them, these folks actually don't want to be there. You do know that, right? They're sleeping in their car in front of near your house, but it's not because they want to be near you. Um, and I've taught them, and in most cases, if they're able to do better and they have opportunities, I talk to these folks. They would take it. So that's one of the most important things to know about a lot of these individuals. When they're in a situation, it's because it's not only that they're hopeless in a lot of cases. Oftentimes they don't see an option after trying so hard, you know, to find options, and no one's helping. But instead of helping them, they're getting judged. You Yeah, buddy.
I want. I'm gonna, like I said, a lot of people, probably don't like my deliverance and some of the ways that I talk about things, but I've heard a couple theories uh, when it comes to homeless people getting benefits or being able to get some kind of assistance. That they should have to work for that assistance. They should have to
Mm,
maintain a certain amount. They should have to go uh, and fill out a certain amount of job applications in order for them to get their benefits. Now, once again, I'm talking from personal experience here. First of all, if you can provide me a job for free, why can't you pay me for that job? If you want me to go out and pick up trash off the freeway, then why can't
oh
you
yeah,
pay me? Why am I doing this for free? If I am in
yeah,
jail, you are taking me out. You are giving me a job. Where did you find that job? Where was that job at in the job employment line? If you can find me a job for free, which to me is call it what you want, but I call it slave labor because you're working my ass for nothing. If you can provide me a free job, why can't you provide me a paid job? I'm just asking.
You talking about the for particular programs where they work to pay back the money that they got from the social services type of thing.
Yeah, that was one. But I remember, back in the day when I first came to California about 20 years ago. Um, One of the things that you had to do if you weren't employed is that you had to go and find a job. You had to fill out every week. You had to fill out how many employers you went to, and this was even for unemployment benefits. You had to fill out, uh, you know, uh, who did you go and see, what time, and so if
At least 16.
right. So if there are no jobs out there for pay, and if I mean, why am I humiliating myself? You know, and there's a certain sense of pride that everyone has. I don't care, whether you're a little kid. I mean, and you've been instilled with pride in your family. There's a certain amount of pride that it takes, to keep banging your head up against a brick wall. How do you, when and then you know your address is a PO box, if that. I mean, you're constantly putting these obstacles in front of me, and then you're blaming it on the victim.
Yeah, those people are some of the first folks that would see there being a system to oppression for sure. Um, Even if it's not the whole thing, aspects of certain bureaucracies or certain things, you would see that there's something like people at the bottom who feel this weight pressing on them that, hey, I need to get up and do better, will feel, like you mentioned, taking one step forward and two steps back, it being difficult. You don't have clothes to go on a job interview. Okay, you get the clothes, but you didn't take a shower because, where you need to go, they don't have
Gas
showers.
station was closed that morning.
It is. The gas station was closed. The beach, they told you give you a ticket if you're there again. Uh, so many barriers set up, and people typically in the lower classes in those situations will come all too aware of the visceral sense of some type of barrier really existing that is a block between them and living like anybody else who is in a better situation. And now, of course, it's moving on to people who are housed. As I'm sure you know, the statistics are spreading that, you know, uh, was it 40% of Americans, almost half, um, one incident away from being homeless. Um, and as we're speaking, that's happening to someone for sure who was, in a home and, and paying their bills. And then next thing you know, their father or their sister suddenly dies, medical bills. You pay to try to save the person's life. They die, and you end up homeless. Uh, Now, you may get services to help with that housing at some point, but like you mentioned, they need to have that fortification inside of them, that health inside of them, that resilience, and just the health inside of them to where they can cope much better than we are now in the country.
Now, I'm gonna blow another misconception out of the water too.
Bring it.
Less than 20% of the homeless people or the homeless population. Listen to what I'm saying now. Less than 20% of the homeless population are African American. Why do we bear the brunt of the homeless plight?
Yeah.
It's like we are the only ones that are homeless. There's no other race, there's no other culture that embraces homeless but us.
Disproportion.
Your thoughts, man?
Yeah. Let me make sure I understand it completely. So, um, we're relatively in homelessness in
One
general. The
fifth,
number is one.
1/5 of the
Uh,
homeless population.
hmm And within that 1/5, unfortunately, it kind of eats away at our population relatively, and which it shouldn't, given how much that we're minority in the country, and how many numbers we actually have. It should be a lot lower still. Yeah, no, and the question was like, why is it embraced? Help me understand what the question means by embrace.
Why do when as soon as you know, and I'm stereotyping here now. As soon as you hear the words homeless, there's some dark-hued guy with a wine bottle sitting on the corner, waiting for a handout. No self-esteem. We come from kings, brother. Come on now.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Well, you know,
why are we the face of the homeless population?
I would call it an image war. You know, it's very much like you said. We come from kings, but it you could even extend that to how Africa is displayed as like begging. Begging for handouts. Huts, for example. Children with pot bellies.
While you're speaking of Africa, we have 18 African countries that have withheld their money from France. Do you know what that has done to the French economy? Once again, like I talk about things, maybe a little bit different, but the only thing that we can effectively employ at this particular time is our black dollars. Now, we're talking about homelessness here, so I'm trying to figure out how we became the face of the homelessness. We become the face of laziness. We become the face of the undereducated. Has anybody? Is there something that you can turn on that a black man hasn't had a hand in inventing? I mean, even from the lights. They talk about Edison, but he wasn't a man. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm just trying to, and it seems like we have embraced this image. That's what I'm trying to get to here. Uh, uh, we are not the only ones that are suffering,
Hmm.
but we are the only ones on the poster.
Straight up. On the poster, even though the poster is there, there's still kind of like the idea of Black lives not mattering. Um, there is still a disillusionment, uh, apathy, oftentimes to Black homelessness. Um, Very much similar to how you hear Black women in hospitals will go through issues with um, not being prescribed pain pills because it's like, oh, they can handle it. You know, I've seen it happen once, and I've heard of it. I've heard when Black women talk about it, and it's a really it's almost unbelievable until you actually see it as far as the cruelty, um, yeah, the apathy. It's maybe it's part of the apathy probably is showing these pity. You know, we need to pity you, Black man, Black woman. We need to help you. We need to, you know, give you a pity that's not consistent with dignity. You know, and I definitely oppose that myself. My thing is, um, I have seen resources go to so many groups and not enough um, of the best resources going to um, Black Americans when it comes to them being down and out. You know, I'm noticing, and it is a proportional thing. You know, good point. I think it's white Americans who, in large, are the most homeless as far as numbers, for sure. But as far as the relative size, the percentage of groups, disproportionate, unfortunately, with blacks, even though we are a smaller percentage on a wider scale. Uh, we should definitely not be seeing the numbers that we see based on our own context, you know, our own proportion. So, no, good point. Yeah, and people need a comprehensive assistance and teaching, including, by the way, of course, money management, uh, financial literacy, but also it's one of the things I'm really passionate about is correcting the lies that are actually told about who we are, and it starts with history. You know, show the actual Egyptians the way they actually looked. Let's start there, even. But you know, people know that we came from Africa. Well, the world, you know, common sense is supposed to tell you if we came from Africa, the whole world, then that should mean that the institutions and everything that actually make us survive and thrive come from Africa. But I don't think that's not caught on in a wide scale set yet. They just say, "Oh, our genetics and our hunting and our attitudes about those type of things comes from Africa." But as far as civilization, as far as prosperity, um, the richest man to have ever lived, Mansa Musa, came from Africa. Unfortunately, we're seeing a time. I don't think anybody spoke on this just yet, but we're seeing a time now where Elon Musk is nearing that relative amount, especially if he gets that $1 trillion, thing there. But nevertheless, correct the image of Black people as depraved, deprived, and poor. Correct that, and that's going to help a lot of people out, and it's going to give a lot of people resilience and confidence. Definitely helped me out a whole lot. Like yeah, I would not have made it through a lot of things I made it through if I thought of myself the way that I would even notice people think of me.
Well,
Yeah, I
once again, I think when it comes, to homelessness, the stigma of homelessness um, exploded in cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, uh, just to name a few, out here on the West Coast. Even here in San Diego, I mean, you know, I moved out here from back east. Well, right now it's about oh, 30 some degrees. So would I rather be homeless in California where it's now what still about 50 some, almost 60 degrees, uh, and stand a better chance of actually having an opportunity, or at least, and I know it's not allowed, but I'm just using this as a euphemism. Being able to sleep on the beach. I mean, you look down in Mission Bay and you see all the RVs and everything, down there. Well, these people aren't sleeping in their RVs because they want beachfront property. Some of these people at one time had a house, they had a home, and that's regardless of race, creed, color, whatever, because this is a universal problem. But as two black men
Well,
talking about homelessness, at this particular time, I'm relating it to us. So I'm talking about our population, even though it is, like I said, it is a nationwide problem. But there are there are organizations that are supposed to help fix this: Salvation Army, Red Cross, uh, Father Joe's. Now, I'm just naming those as a few. But if we have the resources at any given time to make things better for us, I mean, okay, maybe you might know one because I haven't heard of one yet. Can you name me one national recognition black person that's an advocate for homelessness?
mm,
I mean, back in my day, we had Martin Luther King, we had Stokely Carmichael, we had the Black Panthers. I'm looking for somebody today.
yeah, I would say there is one person. Unfortunately, I don't remember his name, but he's a preacher. Um, he's called the Poor People's Campaign or something like that. He's a
Okay,
preacher.
yeah,
He's
I do remember the Poor People's Campaign. Yeah, okay,
but there's someone he's alive today, um, and he's heavily allied. He's done a lot of push. I haven't got to follow a lot about what he's doing, but he's been on a lot of news circuits as far as advocating for people who are. It's more so lower class, but including homeless individuals. Um, but yeah, that's about it. Which that's not really saying much. That's just one person, and
well, Martin
and
Luther
he's on.
King was one person. Jesse Jackson was one person. I mean, but, what I'm looking for is that leader, that guy. Where's our shaft?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, everybody comes up with a great white hope. What about ours, dude?
Good point. Yeah. Well, that was the day before King was assassinated, or the days leading up to assassination. He was advocating for workers, sanitation workers. Um, he was advocating the very, very almost baseline levels of workers need to be treated better so that they can survive. And no doubt, a lot of them, if they weren't treated property at their jobs, they would lose their housing. They would lose whatever they had. Very baseline stuff that a person could have work and dignity as a result. Um,
Let me
yeah.
give you an example of what I'm talking about. When I was, uh, we'll say before the 2000s, there was three men on a trash truck. One guy on each side to pick up the trash, one guy to drive. Three men. Nowadays, there's a truck that comes by, there's a thing that comes up, picks up the trash, throws it in the truck automatically. Two people have lost the job.
Hmm.
That's called automation. Automation is called progress. You can't. Technology is making humans almost obsolete. I can wake up in the morning and probably put out, if I was just fooling around, probably 25, 30 articles a day with AI. Just ask it a question, tell it to write. Boom. Reporters are
Yeah.
becoming almost obsolete. When's the last time you picked up a newspaper? About the only
Right.
paper that I know that's printed right now is Muhammad Speaks.
Even the people that made AI, a lot of people that create the AI engineers, the programmers, even they're being replaced by AI.
Right?
Actually, that's actually
So how are we going to decrease the number of homeless people when we can't find jobs? I think this last quarter, the United States lost 30,000 more jobs, maybe even more. Every day I see where there's some business or corporation filing for bankruptcy or whatever. So how do you reduce the homeless population when you are creating more no less and less opportunities for people to upscale themselves?
and we're still actually, unfortunately, even though we're moving into pretty much a new paradigm, a new time, where people who are already doing okay are being replaced, we'll say, by automation. I think 14,000 Amazon workers were just released, and they didn't specifically say it was through AI, but of course, that's kind of the elephant in the room suspicion based on some things that were said. And it's just, these are, yeah, and this isn't coming from me as to me saying that. That's it's just stuff that people kind of already figured. I've seen some reports on it, but paradigm is shifting. We're talking about jobs. Even you said just a little while ago, jobs. These people aren't getting jobs to support them doing better. The problem is that that's now an old paradigm where jobs have actually never been sufficient. Now, I mean, we talk about trades, like trades are helpful, of course, as your job, but that's still like that's a trade. It's not just a job. Careers, are starting to be replaced, a lot of them. But paradigm is shifting to where there, and I suspect it's very much like how the Industrial Revolution changed folks moving changed with regarding people who used to be farmers, for example. They used to be close to their families, and due to them coming to the cities, it was a whole paradigm shift. Everything changed. Um, their living situation was different, and they just so many things were different that affected the world. And in sociology, that's one of the biggest things that uh, count as like a marker of things that just set a domino effect for the future. Now it's about to happen again with AI. The people who are already suffering, they're not going to be able to do the old thing that people used to do 10 or 15 years ago to get back on their feet. And even the people who, and so you have them, and then you have middle class folks. It's going to shift. Some people are, I would say, overly optimistic that it's going to be an assistant. It's going to make things better. Well, yeah, it's going to make things better for sure. And like you mentioned the word progress earlier, oh, it's going to be progress for certain people, and they're going to, of course, argue the trickle down a bit with a trickle down 3.0, from the top. Oh, yeah, you help my business, and even though I'm going to fire these thousands and thousands of people, trust me, in the end, you're going to be living a better situation. Look at the poor in Africa. Look at the poor in India. You're living way better than them. So now, though, there's now the hope and the despair about the idea of living, not living, is it living wage? This idea of being paid a monthly uh, amount, an allotment just about towards the average citizen. And this is something that Musk um, reportedly was for as a solution
But
to
that's
the coming
socialism,
problems.
man. What's wrong with you? That well, you trying to turn America into a socialist country? What is wrong with you, man? I mean,
I don't know what is going. Yeah, I know they the very thing that they say they don't want. Yeah, we'll see, man. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, and it also oddly enough, by the way, socialism for people who are a certain. It works like that for some people in certain areas, who have certain resources, and those who are lower class. No, you have to pick yourself up by your bootstraps, sir. No free handouts, even though you pay taxes, no free handouts. Everything, any assistance we give you, well, you get. Oh yeah, let me bail out these folks because we need them. You know, you
well,
help bail them out. They're important.
I'm glad you mentioned that because before we go off there, I'm not going to keep you on too much longer. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, Two things. Uh, Most people that are on SNAP we got letters on the first that our SNAP benefits would not be distributed or uh, covered this month. Yet and still, we know that there's a slush fund, emergency fund, whatever you want to call it, of almost $6 billion that can be used for emergencies. But instead of doing that, we are going to bail out Argentina. Now, Argentina, their main export is beef. Now, I'm not saying I know a lot of black ranchers or nothing like that, but I'm just talking about ranchers in general because ranchers employ people and they also make sure that other people have jobs, like the meat packers, like, uh, even down to the cowboys, however low you want to go. Okay. But they are in direct competition with American farmers. Same thing with soybeans.
Mm.
We decided that China is buying like something like 1/10 of the soybeans, and I might be wrong. Maybe it's 1/15 or one nil. But anyway, now I think it's Brazil that has that big soybean contract. So
Mm.
my point once again being is that there are fewer dollars available to us. There's a lot of money available for so-called countries that are favored by the upper class, but you would rather see women and children and seniors. I'm a senior. I display it proudly, but you would rather see us being denied our benefits with shipping the same amount of money that would be very helpful uh, to another country. And then, as I said, you now have less jobs available to the American economy if you have less money going into the system. So, how do you approach homelessness when there is relatively less money going into a system that is constantly being fed by more and more individuals?
Hmm. It's like if you take away that engine, um, you're kind of like dooming yourself to be more dependent, type of thing. Yeah.
Right? Now you got to push you got to push the train uphill.
Mm, yeah. I so you still didn't receive anything yet after that notice um, regarding the snap being over.
Oh no,
You didn't receive.
not it'll probably just like it. See the thing about the go, they can cut things off, boom, right away. But when it comes to turning the spigot back on, it seems to take a little. It seems to take a few more days.
Yeah, because I think because we were definitely anticipating this crisis and this. Dang well, a lot of people will be very upset about Snap not coming on, and like you to your point earlier, mostly white Americans, um, and then
You don't have
everybody
to.
else
You don't
were
have to
upset.
mumble most. You don't have to mostly white Americans. Yes,
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah,
there are
yeah,
definitely more white people on Snap than there are people that look like us.
yeah, yeah. Well, the main thing is that yeah, it's just that I think about have told myself that I have to focus and think about Black Americans and what is going on with us because um, they're they're going to be fine. Everyone, when it comes to a lot of white Americans, there are certain things that end up coming their way historically, even though now it's a different time we're living in now, oddly enough. But generally, it's like the triage idea, right? It's you think of everyone, but you also think of the closest, the quickest resolution. And you think about who has been waiting for assistance for a long time and hasn't been getting it, right? Regardless of the percentage of the population who is homeless, for example, how long has this particular person been homeless as opposed to these 10 people? This one person been, even though it's one person, he's been homeless for 10 years and only received little people gave up on him because he has a bit of a temper. Okay, well he's 72 years old. Like he can have a temper if he wants to. Uh but you're gonna drop him from your case just because he mouthed off at you once. Stuff like that. But one person out of 10 people, he's been homeless the less.
I'm
For
seven. I'm 78 years old. I've been taking anger management since I was in my 20s. Since this first time I went to prison. Okay.
yeah, can't
Uh,
be used
so
against.
so that's a mental illness. I go and talk to. There are people that I go and talk to when I feel triggered. That is a mental problem. I mean, I can go to work like anybody else. I can do everything everybody else does. But if I let that one trigger go off, I can be back in the penitentiary in a minute.
That yeah. You feel that you have access to that person you can talk to.
Yeah, and that that is a mental a mental problem. It's not debilitating. I'm not out sleeping in the streets or out cursing out people or anything like. But under this particular concept, that particular anger management falls under mental illness. Now, like I said, that that's not debilitating. Like when I was locked up, I took lithium, and whatever it is, that they give you to keep you calm or whatever. Uh, I took I had to take Ritalin as a kid because of my energy and my circumstances. But once again, it comes down like this is a system that is constantly being. We are feeding the system quicker than we are pushing success out on the other end, and that's a system that's doomed for failure. At least that's my perception. But I haven't been where you've been, so maybe you have a different one. And with that, you can kind of give your final thoughts, and we'll go off there. I won't keep you that much longer. Thank you so much for coming in tonight and participating. So yeah, why don't you close the program out on those thoughts?
Most definitely, most definitely. Um, yeah, I like your points. When it comes to looking in the future, even the nearest future. By the way, really quickly, I saw in ground news, I think it was this morning or yesterday, um, the administration supposedly approved urgent funds to help people to get snapped back on after the situation with a judge that
Yeah.
blocked
I mean, I'm
blocked.
not one of the in one of the like one of those dire situations, like a family of five or six or seven. It's not that I'm in those dire situations, but I do
You
come
are.
from a class of seniors, which are definitely affected by that, and also people that are retired. And like I said, this doesn't, I'm actually in the minority here because believe me, for every, you know, one black person, there's four white people out there that are in worse shape than me.
And
It's,
different ages too, younger and
yeah,
older. Uh, yeah, man. The time we're entering into right now, based on where we just came from, not too long ago. One, we need stronger ethicists. Um, in these corporations, they're fast forwarding automation, um, human resources. They're coming up with all kinds of solutions. The rise of corporations and the effects on the population and politics, of course. Um, I talk to lawyers, I talk to HR folks, and everyone has given the same perception basically that ethicists within companies are not listened to, and that, while they could play a role in policy, actually, just today, actually, I was talking to someone. Um, I was going to get coffee, actually, and he told me that you can't expect the corporations themselves, even though there are some certain ones that treat their employees good, and that, I don't know how much that reflects the major the leading trend, but there are exceptions. There are exceptions, but it will have to be a government controls or government action to slow down the replacement of human workers by automation, by AI. You probably heard of the Waymo cars. There's plenty of them in LA. Went out to LA over the weekend, and I probably saw about 15 Waymo cars while I was driving in the area. And it's happening more and more. You know, the people who deliver food, that typically deliver food, DoorDash people, out there in certain areas, Beverly Hills, over by the entertainment section near SoFi. Um, in those areas, they have these little box cars with the wheels on it that are rolling, delivering food now. And they have oftentimes at least, what, four orders within that little box. It is ramping up. It's almost like the sci-fi movies where some of us, I know for me for sure, before the turn of the century, I fantasized about as a futurist about this future of automation and implants and flying cars, person on the Mars by 2016, and all this type of stuff. And it seems like the movie was started, and the average person was left out of the movie, and the corporations decided to have their go at it, and not to think twice about the unfortunate average person. We need ethicists who are going to stop and slow down this trend, not stop it per se, because it can't be stopped. It's a competition thing
Yeah,
internationally. But
I hate to interrupt you, but the last time I was in Las Vegas,
mhm,
my Uber didn't have a driver.
yeah, see,
I mean,
yep,
I could
probably a
have got
Waymo
one.
car.
I could have got one with a driver. Now, don't get me wrong, but I wanted the experience. I mean,
So how
and
was it?
some people are just curious like that. I mean,
Hmm.
where it was fascinating. It was kind of scary all at the same time.
Yeah,
But what I'm saying is, like there will be a time when like cab drivers, uh, chauffeurs, those things, you know, why am
very
I paying
shortly.
you?
Yeah,
I mean, and I think I had to pay $1 more or something like that, but then it was for the experience. 5 years from now, it'll be a reality.
yeah. In some places, less than 5 years. Yeah, in LA, it's like full fledged. It's like one in every five cars is, as far as rideshare, is like a Waymo, especially in certain areas. Yeah, it's full fledged, and then that is just one of the many things that are a crisis for people, because yeah, you can switch to another job, but that job is also being replaced. Um, Even podcasting, there's on Gemini, you can type in
It's,
some information, and then literally they will spit out a an actual podcast that sounds extremely realistic from anything you put out there. Um, and the folks that are developing this, oh yeah, kudos to them for technological advancements. But our technological advancements are going so far, and yet the ethical concern for each other is being left behind. And it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. It was regarding homelessness, regarding the shutdown. Um, yeah, I would say as a final word that regardless of what happens materially, have to solidify mental health. And you are a great example of that. Having someone to talk to. Too many people don't have, especially men, don't have someone to talk to. Some of them actually want people to talk to, but they don't even know how to begin to find the right assistance. And unfortunately, oftentimes you have to find the right there. I'm sure you know you have to find the right anger management person.
the first 50 years of my life, you were not allowed to show weakness. That was not, men didn't go and talk to anybody.
Yeah,
If you had a problem, you kept it inside or you dealt with it. But, like it wasn't, it was a stigma back then. Now, I tell people I go to anger management. Oh, good for you, man. 10 years ago, I tell people I go to anger management. Oh man, you must be crazy. What's wrong with you? You know.
Yeah, good point. Never mind the fact that everyone needs one. Everyone needs a therapist or a counselor. Every single person, you know, every single person needs to have access to one. That's a good point. Um, and that's why I emphasize too culture. You know, culture and values in the sense of like what's important to people, because the culture is what dictates and says, "Hey, you shouldn't act like this in that situation. If you want to cry, don't be a B word. You know, you need to don't. If you cry, I'm gonna hit in the hood. Is if you cry, I'm
Yeah,
gonna give you
yeah,
these.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Don't be a little bitch. You can say it. Well, hey, you
yeah,
can say whatever you want to say. This is my
yeah,
show, okay?
yeah. They'll tell you. Yeah, they'll tell you you be a little bitch, man. And you know, what I mean, you know, you get harder by basically being abused. You know, that culture in multiple ways. We need to pay more attention to the culture that we're feeding from and the values that we're acting out of. And values, again, is what we really believe deep down inside, whether we know it or not. And so that's what I would say is critical, that regardless of what's going to happen, not, and by saying regardless of what's going to happen, I don't mean it doesn't matter. Of course, it definitely matters what happens materially and with the shutdown and everything. It needs and it needs to be, it needs an immediate, it needs a solution ASAP, materially and financially and logistically, morally, but also people need to pay more attention to what's inside of them and where they are as a bulwark against one, what's coming. You know, regardless of what's coming, whether it's something much worse or something better. You know, there are people who become successful financially and they go crazy, or they have mental ill issues directly related to that, because they thought it would be different when they got us to a certain status, and they find out, oh crap, I'm still empty. You know, um, it is just as we have crises that we were just talking about. It is a crisis or a need for attention for people to dig deep into what they really believe and why they're really here. Whether and we don't have to get ultra like metaphysical with it. No, like what is the point of why you are here? What do you want? You know, what are you interested in? What why are you doing what you do? Because we can find out why we do what we do in a lot of cases, and the more we are able to do that, the more we'll be able to cope with the ups and downs that are definitely coming.
Uh, hey,
And thank you for having.
no problem, brother. It was good talking with you. I'm glad I made you comfortable enough to stay with me this long. So
I
I,
appreciate it.
I know you don't really like to talk, but I'm glad you were able to stick around with me tonight. But you have a great one, brother. I hope we can get together soon. I really want to go down to that World Beat Cafe. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you guys got my mouth watering for that now. So I've been, I've been thinking
Okay.
about that. I've been thinking about that all week, man. You know, so
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
you have a great night though, man. It was good talking with you, and hopefully I'll see you again next week. All right,
Same here. Talk to you soon. Yes, sir.
all right. You have a good one.